Rod Serling was a well-known writer before creating and appearing as the narrator in The Twilight Zone. While the show may have been the height of his career in pop culture, Rod wasn't finished after the final Zone aired in 1964. What happened to the father of the fifth dimension after he returned to our realm? Is Serling's later work held in high regard? And how did it all end?
Well, that's the way it goes.
After a legendary 5-season run, The Twilight Zone was canceled. While it wasn't rating in the top 10 anymore, the series still had strong viewership. Along with his agent, Serling attempted to sell the series to another network, since he split the ownership rights with CBS. NBC turned it down, but ABC was initially interested. Unfortunately, the Twilight Zone name fell under CBS's purview, so ABC pitched an idea based off a paperback anthology Serling edited named Witches, Warlocks, and Werewolves. Rod wasn't happy with the title and responded with a concept called Rod Serling's Wax Museum. The writer didn't want to be tied down to horror stories every week, which is what ABC was hoping for, and thus both parties ended negotiations. Serling's production company, Cayuga Productions, officially closed its doors, and Rod sold his half of The Twilight Zone to CBS in exchange for a large payment. According to Serling's wife Carol, the main reason he did this was because CBS said the show was always going over budget and they would never recoup costs. This, of course, turned out to be false, as the show is still making money to this day. In the years after, Serling would sometimes catch an episode in syndication, with scenes deleted and/or moved around. This upset him, as it was a point of pride to maintain a high standard of production. But alas, he had no say in how this portion of his work was presented going forward. Following the official dissolution of The Twilight Zone, Rod didn't seem to miss a beat. He picked up another writing Emmy in 1964 for an episode of Bob Hope Presents the Chrysler Theater, titled It's Mental Work. He also served a short stint as the president of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, overseeing the Emmy Awards themselves in 1965 and 1966. His next big swing at another TV show was creating and writing for a Western back on CBS in 1965. The Loner was canceled halfway through its first season, as Serling continued to have problems with his home network. Although, critics liked the series, and in 2016, Shout Factory released the entire show on DVD. Rod penned the script for a television movie called The Doomsday Flight, which debuted on NBC in December of 1966. The plot concerned a terrorist-planted bomb hidden on an airplane and the resulting ransom. The project proved popular among audiences, scoring a large rating and receiving theatrical releases outside the US. However, it did inspire several real-life copycat incidents in the ensuing years. Following the Qantas bomb hoax in 1971, the Federal Aviation Administration advised TV networks to cease re-airings of the movie entirely.
Astonishing? Perhaps. But you can find it for Christmas for $17.95 in a place that's known as Radio Shack.
During this time period, Rod received a lot of various on-screen work due to his familiar persona. He hosted a game show, a local Los Angeles program, was the face of several endorsements, narrated a radio show, and continued to write mostly well-received scripts. Among them were the first 3 drafts of the original 1968 Planet of the Apes movie, based on Pierre Boulez's novel. Michael Wilson was brought in to rewrite Serling's work, and they eventually shared credit for the famous screenplay.
Join me for the unveiling at the Night Gallery.
In 1969, Serling re-teamed with NBC to release an anthological TV movie titled Night Gallery. He wrote and introduced all 3 stories with different directors helming each one. Most notably was the second segment, directed by a young Steven Spielberg. The movie ended up being a proof of concept for a spin-off series of the same name that launched the following year. Night Gallery, the show, is likely second only to Twilight Zone in terms of projects that Rod was the face of. He served as host and a consistently featured writer, but didn't want to produce in any capacity, as he did with his days in the Fifth Dimension. At almost 46 when the series premiered, he felt he was too old to handle the day-to-day grind. As a result, the series strayed from what he originally created it to be, and he was upset by the later direction it took. Serling complained to NBC and Universal, who produced the series, but with a lack of control, he didn't have much sway. Rod was bound by name and face to the series through its finale in 1973 after 3 seasons. Despite his disapproval of where the show went, Serling still received several award nominations for his writing on Night Gallery, showing he could still deliver quality work. Rod suffered a mild heart attack in May of 1975 and was back in the hospital a month later for coronary bypass surgery. During the 10-hour-long open-heart procedure, complications arose. He passed away soon after, at the age of 50. June 28, 1975 marked the end of an extraordinary life, a life that left behind family, many friends, and a legacy of work we're still all reaping the benefits of decades later. The creator of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, encapsulated Serling's impact in a statement about his death. The fact that Rod Serling was a uniquely talented writer with extraordinary imagination is not our real loss. These merely describe his tools and the level of his skill. Our loss is the man, the intelligence, and the conscience who used these things for us. No one could know Serling or view or read his work without recognizing his deep affection for humanity, his sympathetically intense curiosity about us, and his determination to enlarge our horizons by giving us a better understanding of ourselves. He cared, and I suspect, perhaps too deeply, too much of the time. He dreamed of much for us and demanded much of himself, perhaps more than was possible for either in this place and time. But it is that quality of dreams and demands which makes the ones like Rod Serling rare and always irreplaceable. In September of 2024, the year of Rod Serling's 100th birthday, the annual Serling Fest took place in Binghamton, New York, Rod's hometown. Capping off the festivities, a full-size bronze statue of the writer was presented in Recreation Park. This was yet another solidification of Serling's legacy, with that famous door to his back and the words, "You unlock this door with the key of imagination," emblazoned on the frame. With Rod gone, it wasn't long before his greatest brainchild started to birth new material from creative forces who were heavily influenced by his work. To find out where the Twilight Zone went without its architect, check out my video on the subject.